Hi, hello, welcome. This is the start of a brand new series on this channel because I want you to have practical examples of how to use your midheaven to start, grow, and scale your business because that's exactly what I do. If you're new here, hi, I'm Blue. I'm a business astrologer for entrepreneurs, and I help you do just that. By bringing astrology into your business strategy, I help you to grow, start, grow, or scale your business as a coach, consultant, or service provider. So, this series is going to be analyzing celebrity charts, specifically looking at their midheaven and really dissecting it, looking at it from an astrological point of view to really pinpoint okay, like why do they hit or not hit the way that they are, and what advice I would give them if I was their private astrologer on how to fix that. So, of course, we're going to kick it off with Usher's chart. His Super Bowl performance is very top of mind for me. It's very top of the noggin because he really did that. Okay. I'm sorry. I was raised in a pro Usher household. So I was living for it. And there's just so many astrological reasons why it hit the way that it did. So we're going to break this down. And this is going to be really useful for you if you, like Usher, have a Gemini midheaven. But even if you don't, there's still a lot you can learn from this. So I'm going to break down his chart. We're going to walk through it together. And then I'm going to share what advice I would give him if I was giving him a midheaven reading, and also if I was working with him privately as his private astrologer, how he can use his midheaven for his career. Okay, cool. Let's get into it. So the very first thing we're going to look at is his chart overall, right? This is it. Isn't it beautiful? And the very first thing we're going to look at is really breaking down the midheaven placement. So let's dig into that. Okay, so his midheaven is the very top point that is here, right? If the natal chart were a clock, it would be at the 12 o'clock sign where the 12 o'clock would be. So his midheaven, that big MC right there, is in his 10th house that is ruled by Gemini. Love that for him, honestly. So let's break this down in a few ways, right? Firstly, what is Gemini? Gemini is a mutable air sign. It is the first air sign in the zodiac. And air signs represent the sharing of ideas, often fast, often futurist thinking, right? It is all about sharing and moving forward in a positive way. And Gemini really likes to do this is Gemini especially is such a great communicator. So whether it is talking, it's writing, it's like Gemini represents the great yapper of the zodiac. Okay. Geminis love to chit chat, but also this is where the strength comes in. Gemini is also ruled by Mercury, which shares traditional rulership with Virgo as well, which is an earth sign. So there's a lot of synastry there when it comes to the sharing of ideas, being a really good communicator. And also, Mercury for business owners is a really important planet because Mercury represents commerce as well. For business owners, especially, it is so important to like tap into Mercury, but I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. Okay. But just know, as a business owner, and like if you're somebody that really wants to tap into this, and especially if you have prominent Gemini or Virgo placements in your chart, including the midheaven, like Mercury is going to be your ally. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Having a Gemini midheaven is really such a blessing in so many ways. One, with it also being a mutable sign. Mutable signs are Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces. Mutable signs are really like the masters of knowing a lot about a lot. They're really good at naturally being gifted or just like being drawn to many different areas, right? And we can see this being expressed in Usher's chart specifically with just like the range that he has in his music and like the range that he has as far as like having such a deep catalog of hits, which was part of the reason why his Super Bowl performance hit off the way that it did. it was just like hit after hit after hit. And I was like, oh, this is mutable energy, like just on screen. And the way that he like went through so many different genres, that is so like mercurial. That's so Gemini also, doing it in a way that is super seamless, but also just like really coincides. It all like fits together somehow. That's part of the magic of also having a prominent mutable placement. It's being able to like merge between different genres, different things, take inspiration from so many different areas, and still be able to utilize them in a way that is seamless. On the flip side, though, mutable placements can also really struggle with that because even though they're really good at like having all these ideas and having inspiration, there can be this resistance to or this like struggle with finding some sort of structure that supports that high level of creativity, right? And without having that groundedness there, mutable energy can come off as very like flippant and just like you change your mind all the time. Like, what's going on? If you have a mutable midheaven, especially, you probably struggle with this a lot in your business, feeling like you have all this inspiration, there's all these things that you want to do, but like not really knowing which step to take or like not even being grounded enough to take that first step, right? So again, like that shows a really good example of how to utilize this energy in a really positive way. Another thing that I want to talk about is the fact that his midheaven degree is at 2 degrees, which is a Taurus degree. So with Taurus, right? Taurus is a fixed earth sign. It's the second sign of the zodiac. And it is a sign that, it's coming after Aries, which is all about fast movement, being the first, being independent, and leading really with your desires, right? And leading with that passion that Aries is really known for. But Taurus is really here to take those passions and like transmute it into, okay, like let's slow it down and like be really intentional about this. Gemini Midheaven is really here to be expressed best when he's able to utilize the energy of like having groundedness in the work that he's here to do. And even by extension, right? Like being steadfast and being like prepared to take these ideas that he has into action. So again, as a performer, we really see this reflected in the depth of his catalog and also the range that he has, not just as a singer, but as a dancer as well, right? And that physical movement, Taurus being an earth sign, like it really likes to be in the energy of like working tangibly with the hands. Um, Dancing is like very sensual. It's very like movement focused. So like that is a great way for him to both lean into the expression of his Taurus degree for his midheaven and then also his Gemini midheaven period. So that's what we like have to work with. And already there's so many things that are popping off for him with just this midheaven. But I want to dig a little bit deeper. So, like we talked about earlier, Mercury is the ruling planet of Gemini and Virgo, right? So, if we look at where Mercury is in his chart, it's actually here at the bottom half of his chart in the third house, where Mercury is very comfortable in the sign of Scorpio, which I found really, really interesting. So, Scorpio is a fixed water sign. Scorpio is a very private sign. It's very comfortable when it can like hide in the shadows a bit, like plot and mastermind in the background. It really does give like Scorpio Mercury energy in particular to me gives like mastermind energy. And it's not like a bad thing. It can, well, it depends on how you wield it, right? But for me, I really actually love this for Usher because, again, if we go back to that plotting and that planning, and the invitation that his midheaven is extending to him to really lean into getting practical and getting like grounded in the ways that he takes his ideas into action. Like that is so fitting for a Scorpio Mercury. Okay, so I really love this. And then Mercury is very at home in the third house. The third house represents communities. It's like it's literal thought work. So like writing, podcasting, blogging, literally leaning into, again, being the great yapper of the zodiac and just like embodying that, sharing that with the people around you, and then also utilizing your community to even be part of like how you tap into that success and really utilize that mercurial energy that you have naturally in your chart that is just like screaming come out. I also want to give a honorable mention to his Virgo rising. So again, there's so much to say. I have so much love for Virgo placements, particularly because I have one in my big three. But for Usher too, he has his Virgo ruling over his first house, the house of self, of identity, of the physical body, right? He also has a really tight conjunction with Saturn. So a conjunction is basically when two placements, two or more placements are like very close together. So his ascendant's at 5 degrees, his Saturn's at 9 degrees, like it's just right on top of each other. So that tells me as an astrologer that his Saturn is going to play a very big role in like how he sees himself, how he portrays himself outward to the world. And Saturn has this reputation of being like a very serious planet. It's very much the energy of like, I'm going to give you the rewards, but like, I want you to learn the lessons first. And so he's very like, how do I put this? He doesn't play when it comes to his craft, right? And we again see this reflected in how like serious he takes his career, which is all about the physical body, being a dancer, being a singer, being a performer for the people. And I think this is also a really interesting way to express Virgo energy because Virgo, very much as a sign, enjoys being of service to other people. Usher is of service in the sense that like he chooses to use his celebrity to entertain, and you know, that's part of like, honestly, that's in line for him because he also has his North Node here. His North Node, it's not in that conjunction with his ascendant in Saturn, but it's still in that first house. So that tells me part of like the ultimate like lessons and like things that he's meant to experience in this world are very tightly connected to how he expresses himself, how he sees himself and puts himself out into the world, interacts with the world around him through the lens of that Virgo ascendant and that Saturn on top of that ascendant. So again, this is a really good example of like, if you have a Virgo placement, again, tapping into that mutable energy, like you don't have to like be of service in a way that like burns you out. In fact, when you move in alignment with that, that can actually serve you in a much bigger way. So let's get into what advice I would give Usher if I were giving him a midheaven reading. Okay. So, being a Gemini midheaven, first of all, I would tell him to definitely keep doing what he's doing and like feel free to experiment, to explore, to like dip his fingers into different genres because not only is that going to help him be in deeper alignment for his business as a performer, but it's going to make him even better at his craft by being able to experience so many different things and be influenced in so many different ways outside of just, you know, where his comfort zone may be. That's going to allow him to grow his fan base, but also grow as an artist and to really tap into a global audience, which for me with his Chiron being in the ninth house, that may be something that he like struggles with, like getting a global audience, it, or even like coming to grips with being like an international superstar, right? Like it's something that he may very much like desire, but it may be more of a challenge to get there. So really leaning into what that Gemini midheaven is really here to tell you. And then also too, like preparing for opportunities is not just about saying that you want it. Again, his 2024 Super Bowl performance is a great example of this because he's literally showing us by displaying all his best hits. Like, he's worked for this, he's prepared for this. And then also creating the pathway for him to grow even further as an artist by announcing he's going back on tour. He's back in the studio. Like, he's doing all these things. He's leaning into learning and expressing more of the craft of being a singer, of being a performer, of getting out in front of the people and doing what he does best. Again, with that Virgo first house, that Virgo ascendant, right? He's here to be of service, and his performance is part of that service that he is here to provide. And so, yeah, he's literally meant to express that. He's meant to perform, and he's also meant to lead and like create leadership in that way through performance and by being really serious and not playing about his craft at all. Now, I want to take it a step further because I do offer private astrology readings. And not just that, but private astrologer work in my program, literally called Private Astrologer. So, in this, I work with established entrepreneurs and we really look at the entirety of your birth chart and really dig into how can you utilize all of this energy into your business and get really specific with, okay, where are the areas of growth for you? How can this be utilized? And we get to dig and play around with really fun techniques, including transits, which is like looking at your natal chart against like the natal chart of the moment, right? Where the planets are actually right now in conjunction with where they were at the moment of your birth and how you can utilize that energy. That gets really interesting because now you get to play around with timing and prediction work and really getting into that. So if Usher was my private astrology client, this is one of the many techniques that I would lean into, but I would really dig into perfection years with him. This is also where it all just like clicked for me with like why his performance hit the way that it did. Okay. So if you look at perfection years is a Hellenistic traditional technique where you look at the whole sign houses and based on your rising sign, then you can determine, what areas of life are going to be like the highlight for you for the upcoming year just based on your rising sign. So I really love this for prediction work and especially for my private client work because this really helps us to zero in on exactly where we need to focus our energies on. Because not every year is going to be like that year for you, especially for business. Like there may be quieter years. There may be years where you may just need to like work in the background, right? But for Usher, he's actually in his 10th house perfection year, meaning that his 10th house is of Gemini is being highlighted this year. This literally paves the way for that superstar energy. And also, this is like the perfect time for him to come out, get back into the spotlight. The 10th house literally represents not just career and vocation, but it is also public image, public reputation. It's literally stepping out in the spotlight and leaning into how others are perceiving you, which may be different from how you perceive yourself, right? Looking again like at other placements in his chart, like his ascendant, his sun, his moon, like these are more so placements you can look to when it comes to how an individual like may see themselves. But for Usher, right, with a 10th house midheaven and a 10th house perfection year, this is really just like super aligned timing for him to come out and get back into the spotlight because he's done the work. Again, that Saturn on the ascendant is so loud and he will probably always be like a perfectionist about his work like many other celebrities are, but like this is the year for him to reap in the rewards that he has spent so long putting into. And honestly, especially with like transits, now that we're thinking about it, right? There's going to be Jupiter moving into Gemini this year in 2024. And in 2025, Uranus is going to be moving into Gemini as well. So, like, there's a lot of big movement that's happening for him. So, it's good that he's been kind of like in the background, just like working on his stuff for a while, because now, like, I'm predicting that we're gonna have a Hot Usher Summer, and he's gonna be back in the spotlight for a while. Like, and this is because, if he's done the work, that's going to be evident in his success. So I'm very excited to see how that's going to turn out for him, and also for other Gemini midheavens as well. What you can learn from this, you can literally take all of this for yourself, especially if you're a Gemini midheaven as well, and really get into putting in the work so that you can reap the benefits of your superstar energy being received and like being celebrated in the way that it should. I'm so excited for this. Let me know down in the comments what was the biggest aha for you, what you've learned. And of course, if you want to work with me and get your own midheaven reading, you can do that. You can also apply to work with me inside of Private Astrologer. All that information is going to be available in the show notes below. Again, thank you so much for watching this. Hit like, subscribe so you get the next celebrity midheaven reading, and definitely let me know which celebrity you'd like me to analyze and read for next.